The SANS Institute, the most trusted source for computer security certification training and research. Visit SANS.org to explore their full curriculum and latest training offerings. Gain control of cyber risk with Tenable.io, the first vulnerability management platform built for today's elastic assets like cloud, containers, and web apps. Discover a fresh, asset-based approach that prioritizes vulnerabilities while seamlessly integrating into your environment. And improve ROI with the first elastic licensing approach based on assets, not IP addresses. Tenable.io delivers the data and context you need to secure your elastic attack surface. Start your free Tenable.io trial today by visiting Tenable.io. NetSparker, the developers of desktop and cloud-based web application security scanners that enable you to automatically identify vulnerabilities in your web applications and web services. NetSparker scanners employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities with their proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at netsparker.com or email at contact@netsparker.com. Logarithm's Netmon Freemium delivers real-time network visibility to quickly identify emerging threats in your IT environment. Netmon Freemium is a free commercial-grade network forensics and traffic analytics solution. You can use Netmon Freemium's powerful capabilities to search against all observed network traffic, identify abnormal traffic patterns and application usage, and quickly analyze full packet captures. Take the first step towards real-time network visibility. Visit logarithm.com/freemium to learn more and download it today. Welcome back, everyone, to Ball Security Weekly. This is the security news for this week. I'm here to tell you not just about AnyCon. Well, actually, I am here to tell you about AnyCon.
Which one?
The first hacker conference of its kind in Albany, New York, Larry. The event will take place on June 16th and 17th at the brand new Albany Convention Center in downtown, you guessed it, Albany, New York. The event features Capture the Flag competition, hardware hacking, and a ping pong tournament, which is awesome. Several tracks will be offered at this family-friendly event. The keynote will be delivered by none other than Dave Kennedy or Dave Kennedy's clone. Not sure which you're going to get at that one.
And others.
and others. Security Week. Well, the keynote will be Dave Kennedy. I don't know who else is speaking yet. We'll report on that. Others. And more.
And more.
That and more guy. He's at every conference. Security Week will be there recording Hacker Movie trivia segments and giving away Security Weekly t-shirts and Hacker Movie themed glassware. Go to anycon.info/tickets to register today. Security Weekly listeners can use the code Paul and get $25 off your ticket. Even though I won't be there, Doug White will be doing Hacker Movie trivia with everyone, and Doug is awesome.
Nice. And if you use the code Larry, you get nothing.
You get nothing. You pay full price. You pay full price.
You pay double.
Are you gonna?
Wow.
You pay more.
Wow.
Are you gonna head out there?
I don't know.
You should.
It's Albany. It's not that far. I mean, it's drivable.
Good drive. We're going to get a Security Weekly van. That's what we're talking
Party
about.
bus.
Yeah.
We want a van. Creepy van of some kind.
Free security on the side.
Free Wi-Fi.
Like Scooby-Doo kind of van?
Yeah.
Like that kind of van. Bourbon or rye.
Paul, before we get started, I have a present for you.
Oh, you're going to do it on air.
Is that what that smell is?
No, that's just me.
Oh.
I was just in Cuba, and I brought this back.
Oh, sweet. It
is literally what that smell is.
It is. Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to light this up like right after I finish this one. Thank you very much.
Paul, is that your first non-embargoed Cuban cigar?
There is, in fact... Well, okay, I guess we'll talk about it. There is, in fact, still an embargo of goods being imported from Cuba. However, if you travel from the U.S. or any other country to Cuba, you can bring back to the U.S.
25.
What is it? Is it 25 cigars?
25 cigars.
Oh, there's a dollar. There's a dollar limit of rum and cigars also combined. Oh, no. Now it's been lifted, so you can bring back as many cigars as you want.
You can bring back 25 cigars. That's what I was
really?
told.
That's what you were told. Interesting. See, we were told you could bring back as many cigars as you were limited, basically in any other country, bringing back cigars. Like there's a limit as to how much you can bring back each time. It's something by weight.
She looks disappointed now.
You could have. I think you could have brought back more. I think they were just lying to you. Yes. Thank you very much.
Road trip. Wait, what?
Yes. So the embargo still is in place. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we're not sure which. I don't know. Listen to Stoic. We talk about it a lot. We're going to talk about WannaCry, the more because we need to talk about that more. Apparently,
Yeah, because it made the national news. I mean,
it did. Dave Kennedy was on the news talking about it, so that's when you know there's something.
It made the national news for more than one day in a row.
Yes.
So it's I would venture that it's important, considering you talked about how to disable SNMP v1.
The risk continues because eWeek is reporting the exploit is now in Metasploit.
Yay!
Yay!
Now, I'd argue that there's a bunch of other potential fun stuff there. The one of them that I hate to say that I got my security news from Wired, but there was an article in Wired that was very interesting about WannaCry in that it appears to not be financially motivated, even though there was some financial motivation to it. Mm-hmm. And part of that was the way that it was deployed. Was that when you get nailed and you have to send your Bitcoin to get your decryption key, it goes to one of 4 Bitcoin addresses, wallet addresses. That with all of the other ransomware, each machine generated their own unique wallet address, so that the folks that were receiving the Bitcoin could correlate which machine was to receive their key. With this, there's 4, and there's 200,000 machines that are sending Bitcoins to 4 addresses, and which machine is which, and which machine has paid, and which machine has not. And it is rumored that it is now a manual process for them to figure out who they need to send. I've heard stories that folks sent their payment in, and 12 hours later had not received a key, because they're in a manual process. I've also heard that there were rumors that because of the poor customer service that American Airlines is behind it. That's a joke. But it appears that they made some, quote, fairly amateur mistakes based on the way they tried to do the Bitcoin collection. And that was going to only 4 addresses, which, again, if you know anything about the blockchain stuff, you send it to 4 addresses, and that means it's infinitely more traceable.
Yeah, and none of the money's actually left either.
Yeah.
That's been interesting.
Yeah. So
apparently,
I also saw another one that someone took the WannaCry screen grab of the decryption, and some graphic artists gave them some critiques.
Yeah.
Like, borders and lose the shimmer on the lock, and move this here and make the buttons bigger. And I'm like, oh god.
Everyone's a critic.
Everyone. Yes, Paul.
So apparently someone figured out that on XP they could recover the decryption key. He says if you're lucky,
was it WannaCry 2017 with an exclamation point, the 0 and O?
No, I'm not sure what it said that it was. It says that the private key can be recovered on XP system. He provided a screenshot, and it said it can exist in memory. I'm not sure why that would just exist in XP. I'm sure there's a reason for that, or this person's claim is completely false. I'm not sure which.
Did you see this one?
Exposed to the internet.
Guy riding a bike, expose SMB to the internet, leans down, says, don't patch for months. It's jamming a stick through the spokes, and then he's on the ground into fucking NSA. Yeah. Brilliant.
Now, some people are saying this worm doesn't infect Windows XP. Is that true? That's not true.
Well, it says it doesn't infect it, but it works on XP. You just have to manually copy it, and run it there. What? Because you can, I guess. I
don't. That doesn't make sense. This is the first I'm seeing of that.
This just in.
Interesting. The other things with, I'm trying to pick the interesting WannaCry.
Yep.
So there was a massive cryptocurrency botnet used leaked NSA exploits weeks before WCry. I guess that sounds less interesting as I say it out loud. Like, of course, those leaked NSA exploits, people are going to do bad things with them.
Yeah.
That happens. The other rumors were that, there was another article from Wired that talked about, and I hate Wired's website, that talked about nation states with hoarding exploits. And there was this whole thing, like, the NSA warned Microsoft that these were going to leak. Microsoft developed a patch and then complains that they're hoarding exploits, but Microsoft was hoarding the patch. So there's basically a whole bunch of whining and crying going on in general, not just from people who were hit by it.
Yeah, doesn't that go back to the vet process that they're supposedly trying to roll out with the executive order of we will release, but not the good ones?
Right.
So it's kind of been this little deceptive promise in some ways.
I would classify a remote exploit for SMB as a good one.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So the latest numbers I have for WannaCry is 311,000 total infected, and only 730 are online right now.
Interesting.
So I think that goes back to obviously the researchers that did the kill switch, and my interest there is that was all private industry getting to it first, but working with people to try and patch this didn't work very well. Who's in charge? Who helps who?
You also had some comparisons to, was it NIMDA or Code Red?
Yeah. So Code Red, similar situation. Windows vulnerability. Patch was released about a month prior.
And we talked about this. What was Code Red was...
Oh, you're going to test me here. I don't remember the details.
It was IIS, right?
Let me look it up here.
Code Red was IIS,
so.
right?
Yes, it was.
And what vulnerability was it?
Yep,
Was
IS
it ISOPI?
Yep.
Was it ISOPI?
IS6, yeah.
I think it was what Steve was saying
Yep.
last week. Yes, it was IIS. I saw it was a while ago. It's amazing how we forget those things.
Yeah.
Pay attention for the next
That was
hacker trivia that
which
we're
one?
doing.
That was 99.
This article I'm reading was from 2001. Yeah. But now,
2001, yeah.
there's a lot more computers on the internet now, too. So we have to take that.
Yeah.
And
factor
faster
that.
pipes, right?
Yeah.
But that was such a long time ago.
And people know how to use firewalls. No, never mind. People know not to expose things to the internet.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Well, so 10 plus years, and we knew that we had to change something. And I think to this day, some of the challenges are if you own the machine, okay, it's yours, you patch it, an organization. But what do you do past that? Like, unless I own your company, and not hack own, but actually own, what do you do to help or triage or resolve? Do you block ports? Where do you go from here? And that still hasn't been resolved in 10 plus years.
Well, I thought...
Where the
now,
certs come in.
This is something I haven't... I was just thinking of it. I haven't said on the show yet. I was waiting for the right moment. This seems like the right moment. At one time, in like 2003, was it... It wasn't Slammer. One of those other worms that it spread over 445. Was it...
Blaster?
Blaster.
Nachi,
Yeah,
Welch,
that was bad.
It was Blaster.
Was it Blaster?
Not Kevin Has. It was Blaster, right? And ISPs started implementing blocking of 445 and 139. And not everyone, some people freaked out about that. And we were like,
broke.
hold on, why are you running that over the internet?
Yeah.
Like, just because it says NetBIOS over TCP IP, it doesn't say NetBIOS over the internet. There was a NetBIOS over the internet. Was there an internet?
Yeah.
It can run over the internet, right? And I'm like, no, just because it's TCP IP doesn't mean internet.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Thank you, Larry. And so ISP started. But what happened? Like over time, they were like, I think we're just going to let it over the internet. Or as new ISPs cropped up, they were like new people in, and they were like, what's Blaster? I don't know what you're talking about. We're not going to filter any port. Like, I don't understand what happened where we stopped blocking that.
Well, I think it does come back to the backbone operators or the major network operators. I talk with a lot of them, but different countries have different philosophies, different ISP providers. Are they business? Are they residential? Like, you don't want to see your neighbor's file share on, your cable.
No.
That's usually a bad day. But, if they're providing a business service and they just don't filter anymore, it's kind of evolved. And port 25 has been kind of the issue too. Is, okay, you're blocking it. Is that malware, virus, or worms? No, but it's just best practice. But then people want it. So then they just kind of drift a little.
And the other one, too, think about when you think about some of those large carriers and so forth, and if they're filtering any of that stuff, think about what they're doing to that traffic from traffic shaping. And the more rules and the more activity you start doing with that traffic, the more latency and then your customers scream.
And the backbone, the transit providers, they actually don't have really the right in a lot of ways as the end ISPs that are selling you service. They're just getting it from point A to point B.
Right.
So that's a big difference too. So Spain had a really good response, both from the cert and otherwise, where they really just dropped into place a response plan. Right or wrong, I don't know the details of it, but they acted quicker than a lot of other places as a country. I didn't see that anywhere else. And I wouldn't have picked Spain to be the fastest responding country, but how do we do that? United States is too big to have a grasp. So I think it'll be another 10 years till we really give people authority or delegate who handles what.
Yep. Anyone have a guess what the Microsoft bulletin for Microsoft Blaster vulnerability buffer overrun and Windows kernel message handling could lead to elevated privileges?
No.
MS0313. Going
Damn.
back, that was 2003.
That's good times.
I was at university at the time, and yeah, I don't know why people just don't block that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So before we get off the subject of WannaCry,
Oh, sorry, I was just trying to go back in time, too.
I know.
'cause it's fun.
Well, so
more fun than talking about current events.
So one other interesting thing that I found about WannaCry, and it's not a technical thing whatsoever, it was shadow brokers.
Yeah.
Shadow brokers got all sorts of bent out of shape that, this is out there now and came from their dump from the NSA Vault 7 stuff. And so now they're, quote, standing back and watching popcorn. But they did another, quote, announcement, manifesto, whichever, about all of this stuff. And their language in their releases has always been...
Korean?
No, it has always seemed very
Broken,
much non-native English speaking. So, for example, I'll read a little string here. In May, no dumps. The Shadow Brokers is eating popcorn and watching You're Fired and WannaCry. Is being very strange behavior for crimeware. Killswitch. Crimeware is caring about target country. The Oracle is telling the Shadow Brokers North Korea is being responsible for the global cyber attack WannaCry. Nukes and cyber attacks. America has to go to war. No other choices. No news error days. To me, that's the beginning half of that seems like it was written by someone that is not a native English speaker.
Are they hinting towards their intent in that?
I don't know.
Because if they're not, it's not a manifesto. A manifesto is a published verbal declaration of of motive, or views of the issue.
I'm getting to the language.
You practice that.
Yeah. I feel embiggened now. That's very cromulent. My vocabulary isn't been embiggened. Whatever it is, I'm getting to the language part, that it seems like it's written by someone that is non-native English speaking. Yet, in the paragraph before, and I will say that this is not safe for work language, in the paragraph prior, they use some very different language. Mm-hmm. And it says the equation group is using and paying for holding patch. Douchebag, dumbass, libtard, rich prick, head Microsoft lawyer is running his cockholster because he's having a rough weekend doing real work. That sounds like an American to me. I mean, how many foreigners do you know that say cockholster? And I don't mean this to be offensive, but that's very much an American slang term.
Well, it's also very recent in the vernacular of our culture with late-night TV shows utilizing that word.
Yes. And head Microsoft lawyer being angry because he's missing leisurely weekend playing the skin flute behind the country club. Real work is not for executives. Real work is being for dirty foreigners, H-1B workforce.
But, I mean, someone could just be copy and pasting off of Reddit.
It could be.
That really is a thing from counterintelligence. Like it's easier to go stupid than it is to act smarter and not be it. Like you can always get down.
And by going stupid and then revealing some of the vocabulary that they're using would indicate to me that they're not necessarily not a native English speaker, that they are a native English speaker because they're using American colloquialisms.
Yeah.
I'd still say it's not a manifesto and more like an announcement.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
I mean, language itself is.
You can go stick your manifesto in your cock holster and call it a day.
Semantics.
So
well, it can be.
Hey, there's an antivirus company, are they? No.
Like the hacker manifesto was a manifesto because he communicated intent.
Did you not see the movie Hackers, Larry?
I did.
There's a whole scene on this.
I did.
Look in that place where we hit the stuff that one time.
So I'm glad we're really on topic here.
Sausages.
Here's a question I have, which is...
A pool on the roof might have a leak.
Hold on, I'll be right back. So when WannaCry came out, variants aside, what's the actual end result? Like, obviously somebody dropped this. Nation state kid, what is it, 400-pound kid in the basement joke, whatever, or somebody that's hired by nation state,
mercenaries,
whatever, which is more and more common. My opinion is, really the end result of this, I don't think it's the money. I don't think it's whatever. It's kind of a napalm to the whole internet to clean some of the stuff up in bad intended or not appropriate ways. But the end result really is cleaning by destroying a lot of machines.
Throwing a little chlorine in the gene pool.
Yeah.
So I like where you're going with this, though, Matt, because it kind of speaks to the intent being to take away the armaments, the disarming, right? And it's the same thing with the breaker bot, right? Is to take away the weapons. So, I mean, you speculate, I'm going to speculate, could it be like the U.S. or some government that's like, well, there's a lot of bad things out there, and those could do harm to us, so let's just hire a bunch of script kiddies to go out there so it never gets back to us. Because clearly, I mean, I interviewed Amanda Russo, Malware Unicorn, on Twitter, and we talked about the level of sophistication in this was just horrible. Right?
Well, it was. I saw that it was a little bit of both. It was like really great at the technical implementation of the shell code and that type of stuff, but everything else built around it was
just
shit.
globbed on.
Yeah, was shit. Yeah,
which means they just bought some really good shell code.
It's either that or they were really good at doing shell code stuff and were clueless about the freaking rest.
Or compartmentalized. Right?
Yeah, we've seen that before.
Stuxnet. Which, okay, let's take that one into account too. The end result blew up in her face. I'm sorry to keep using these, kinetic terms. Yes,
blew up in her face.
No pun intended.
Yeah, I went there.
Winning. Okay, but the end result of that.
I was going to say something. Totally.
That was an explosive joke, Matt.
Bam.
Yeah, that will go well all over.
Yes. Everyone got some.
All right, let's get to the juicy details, Matt.
Killing me here. So, Stuxnet's...
Making me want to cry. Damn it.
The end result of that was not what we intended. It blew up in our face. It really was what we thought with all the time, effort, resources, money as nation state or whatever. It just pissed off the other side to the point that they upped their game too, and they were just kind of sleeping. So
there's speculation as to why in the Stuxnet case that happened. If you watch the movie Zero Days, it's speculated in that documentary that the Israelis really were amping it up, and I agree. It was the U.S. that was like, no, like, let's stay stealthy. And they were like, Israelis like, no, it's not doing enough damage. Amp it up. And they amped it up too much. Yeah. Because that was my initial analysis of Stuxnet. I'm like, wow, like, it really doesn't, like, it was very noisy. And I'm like, why would you be that noisy when you had these awesome zero-day exploits? And then more details come to light years later. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's why. And then when it was described to me and everything that's come out since then, I'm like, no, it really was like an awesome stealthy thing. It just wasn't doing enough fast enough, and that's why. This, I think, is a different thing. I think people obviously piece some things together. Now, what makes me think it's not the U.S. is they used the leaked NSA tools to do it. They were like, oh, good, I've got an exploit. I've got a backdoor provided by the NSA. That's awesome, because I'm sure people are getting yelled at somewhere in the U.S. government for going, why did you let this stuff out? Look what happens when you give your toys to other people. But like the internet melts.
But now you think about it, that maybe WannaCry was the U.S. government.
It could be. I wouldn't
in that whole de-weaponization, it's out there now. Let's write a tool that does all those bad things and gets all sorts of press coverage all over the place.
Are you saying maybe they purposely leaked it?
Well, no, they didn't purposely leak it. They wrote WannaCry and deployed WannaCry and not caring about getting the damn bitcoins, because now Microsoft will issue a patch for it.
And render their weapon that was leaked useless. I like that conspiracy theory a lot.
So this really does go back to the United States as a whole. The government doesn't control the end systems of critical infrastructure organizations. I mean, we all interact with each other and advise each other, but they don't control the systems. So from an adversarial perspective, I'm not saying that this is, who push up, but it did clean up our side too.
Right.
So adversaries couldn't use that part. There's some insanity to that.
No, I love conspiracy. I think it's great. I think it's awesome. Kevin's just sitting there pondering. You're pondering. I know you've got something in there that.
What has been kind of piquing my interest about this is that everything I've read so far has not necessarily mentioned what types of systems on average were impacted. There's very specific examples like the MRI machine. We all heard about that, or the NHS in the UK, but there's no specific examples of, was it just consumer home machines?
Yeah, was it grandma?
Yeah, was it mostly enterprise machines?
Well, there was actually one of the worst environments I saw were the corporate environments that filtered internet. So if you filtered internet, you couldn't get to the kill switch domain, which caused even worse. So the secure by design equaled not so good. So in those environments, you add a couple domain things, but that was some corporate environments. I have seen lists of a lot of the machines that got hit, but it doesn't make really sense to start listing off organizations.
I
orgs
hate
definitely.
using this as an example because it's so cliche. However, a lot of the recommendations that we make, and Larry, you make in your pen test reports, as I know you do, and when I talk to pen testers and ask them, and I look at malware, right, and then I ask people, well, what would we do to protect? That's not necessarily low-hanging fruit, right? But the top things that you need to go fix. Some of them are hard. Actually, most of them are hard. And one is what we talked about, Active Directory security, right? The other is network segmentation. And that's a very broad term. However, it's something that we've been saying for a long time that a lot of organizations don't get right. And I feel like if you did things like restrict communications between endpoints and a lot of the other recommendations we make in the light of network segmentation, and you applied some Active Directory security, you kept up on your patch program, especially given priority in vulnerability management is an issue, right? But if you just look at it's a Windows vulnerability, it's remotely exploitable on a port that's really well used, regardless of your environment and what other remediations, what patches, whatever you have in your environment, you should probably, in March when this came out, you should have patched it, right? And actually there was talk about mandating certain sectors to patch this type of vulnerability because regardless of your environment and however you analyze the severity of things, this was bad, right? It just across the board, this was bad. And our recommendations always have been in network segmentation to help stop things from spreading, right? I mean, Kevin, you helped us remember that Blaster was the worm that ran around, and that changed fundamentally the way we structured networks. I mean, it's stuff that we knew, but I think more people did it because they were like, oh my God, people are going to plug into our network. What happens if I'm out on the internet and I get infected and then I plug into the internal network and I infect things? We're back to 2003 with this worm problem, which I would have hoped we would have had a better handle on. But I think, configuration management, hardening, and patching and segmentation are just table stakes.
And that's a great point, though. I mean, I think it takes a wake-up call like this to really get people to invest in defenses or work on trying to prevent these things within the environment. And also it creates awareness in the public, not just us, but I mean, we know what ransomware is. We know not to click on the links. I mean, some of us still do, but the general public doesn't understand all this. So when they get a Google document attachment, they're going to open it. But now they're going to think twice about it because they've heard about it in the news and they've seen it and their friends may have gotten it or they heard
until
about
3
it in the
months
hospital.
from now when they're like, eh.
Well, but that's why security awareness is a process. It's not a one-time thing. It's we have to be vigilant always, just like with security, national security, or whatever it is.
Well, I think it's interesting too, and it got me thinking about when viruses were first created. Right, they were mostly, I mean, probably 99%, just destructive. It came in your 5 1/4 or 3.5 inch floppy drive, and it overwrote your master boot record and rendered your computer useless, right? And that made everyone really afraid. Like, wow, I think that's how McAfee, right, got its start, was I got to scan my floppy disk to make sure it doesn't have viruses because it's going to wipe out my computer. And I think we went through this evolution before ransomware got really popular for a long time, but for the large part, like, malware and viruses weren't all that destructive. There was a stealthy aspect that consumed your data. Now, I think from an individual or company, corporate, organizational perspective, those stealthy ones can do more damage, but you don't see them. So it's not something you have to react to. It's, they're there, and I didn't notice it. Like, they're collecting my information and whatever. With ransomware, we went back to that, like, over at my boot sector thing. Like, it's bad, and my systems are going to go down. And I just think that's an interesting kind of ebb and flow that we've been through with malware. And I think we need to get everyone on the same page and say, look, it doesn't matter the intent so much as it's going to have a negative impact to you. With ransomware, that's going to be immediate. With other kinds of malware, you're not going to notice right away. However, that could be potentially more destructive. In each case, you have to take precautions to make sure that doesn't happen. And we have all of those. We just got to convince the businesses to implement them.
Well, this is where I'm so fascinated by what type of systems are impacted, as Microsoft had to put out an out-of-band patch for an OS that is no longer supported.
It hasn't been for many years.
So was the driver for that proactive or reactive, where a majority of the systems actually XP, which means they couldn't actually get a patch prior to the ransomware going out because there was nothing to patch when Microsoft wasn't supporting the system. So even if you had this, there's nothing you could do to actually defend yourself.
Right.
So there's this kind of catch-22 of, are all these machines still out there, somehow addressable on the internet, either publicly or some other type of vector in, emails or what have you? What do users do then? Segmentation's not going to stop you if the exploit is always viable.
Well, what I was going to add to the segmentation part, and this came across a couple days ago, you want to segment everything, that's great, but it's all in AD, so what ports do you have to open? So, there's that part.
It's kind of a perfect storm right there.
Yeah. And kind of going back to the maliciousness or the impact. So Slammer was terrible. Filled up all your switches, all your ports, max bandwidth, go crazy. Oops, maybe that wasn't the most effective if they want to achieve a goal. Now, yes, the WannaCry stuff was also loud. All your screens are locking up and everything. But no one cares at that point, right? By the time you notice it, they've succeeded as much as they possibly could. They don't want anything more from you. So I think even though it was obvious, like, you don't have to go around to tell people they were infected or tell them that they were hurting others. I think they know.
You got it, because they've got that lock with the glitter on it.
You don't really have to make any phone calls.
F-Guard is said to go away.
But from that standpoint too, it really does go back to somebody or something doing this for more or at a higher level than just wanting some money or wanting to make a virus or whatever. There's definitely some planning to this, even sloppy code or not.
What I think is interesting is the legacy operating systems that we have out there are largely an appliance-based kind of system.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times you've got XP because you've got some reason to be on XP. Because if you didn't have a reason, you probably would have upgraded by now, right? I mean, I don't know. If you've got 100,000 endpoints, you might be at the end of your cycle going, yeah, we'll get to that department last. I get it. There is a time. There is a pretty long time in which you have to upgrade these systems. However, a lot of them are stuck on that version because it's like an appliance thing. And so, what do you do? How creative do you want to get? Do you want to have a system where you take an image snapshot of that every day, every hour, and then you can just revert back? So, if you do get malware, you just revert to a snapshot on that system. I know that technology exists where I can just revert back. What if the infection was a port or whatever, and you've cleaned it up on your network, revert back to a snapshot and be on your way? Or do you not allow those systems to connect to the primary domain? Maybe you create a second domain for all of your legacy stuff and make all of those credentials separate. Now we get into the authentication and password and credential issue there.
And domain trust.
Domain trust. what access those systems need to the domain, it depends on your application. If it's just a system that needs to put up a display for people and that's how they consume the information, then it likely doesn't need to share resources with the rest of the domain. You might have a separate password for it. And again, that's an issue. But again, like how creative do we want to be to support legacy operating systems given the cost of upgrading all those systems or the improbability? Like what if you need to get a new thing that runs XP and that thing, MRI machine or not, needs, can't work on another operating
That's where
system.
proper risk management comes in, because if you have risk management, then you can tell what the important things are. You can protect them with more resources and effort, and you can determine what is really out there and what you really want to do, I think.
Yeah, and I think if it's business critical and you're stuck on XP, I think you need some short-term measures, but you need a long-term plan to upgrade that.
I think you need a short-term plan to upgrade and a long-term, man.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, as a service provider, sometimes your customers won't want to upgrade. So you will be pushing them to upgrade and say, we don't want to support Solaris anymore, or we don't want to support XP anymore, or whatever it is. And they say, well, we need to. Our application was written for that. We need to stay on this. We don't care about security. We need to stay in business.
Yeah, it's really kind of fun coming across these use cases because all of us are in this industry and
So
it's too long, isn't it?
This is the Stoic Geeks interlude. When you've smoked like 6 cigars in a day, your palate's totally shot, and you're not going to enjoy like a nice Cuban cigar after you smoke like 6 ones. It should probably be like your first cigar of the day. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to do.
Just checking. See, just checking. You said you were going to, so I'm just.
That concludes this Stoic Geeks interlude.
So
back to our regularly scheduled programming.
I just didn't want April to think that you were.
No, that's why. I'm glad you did that. There's a legit reason for that.
So that's why after like 3 or 4 good craft cocktails, like the well bourbon is perfectly fine.
Exactly. Yes. After you've been drinking, you're like, yeah, I'll take
whatever you got.
Mad Dog 2020, whatever it is. Right? Yeah. Where were we? Sorry, we were talking about XP or
sausages.
So after you've done enough Windows 10 systems, XP is like the well bourbon.
Well, yes. But there was this use case I came across, and it was a printing company. So they had these really expensive appliances that were like a room-sized printing press. And that appliance company went out of business. Mm-hmm. But their software to run it was licensed with a stupid dongle that only worked on XP.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so
why can't they run Linux with a default password? Like that's almost an easier problem to fix. Damn it.
Yep. Like I know I've got some specific hardware at home. It's not nearly as bad, but I've got some stuff at home that requires at this point, unless I want to invest some significant time of my own personal to move it to something else, it requires that I be running Windows. And the only machine that I have at home is a Mac to be able to make that happen. And it's a dedicated.
So you run Windows XP at home?
No, I run.
AIX.
I actually run Windows 7 on a Mac.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And Boot Camp, and that's all it does. It boots in Windows. It's horrifying, but that's the hardware that I had laying around.
That's a waste of a Mac.
It's a 2011 Mac, so not so much. But
I'm sorry, I keep going back to this topic of not knowing the machines that were greatly impacted by this, but it kind of encompasses what we've just talked about here, which is there's an out-of-band patch. We know you need to update these things, but sometimes, to April's point, you can't update them or the customer doesn't want to. But you think about an MRI machine, you can't just patch that.
Nope.
You have to get the contractor, the vendor to come in, which means it's like the Android problem where you have the manufacturer actually holding the patch until they can validate and make sure it
FDA.
works, if ever actually give it up at all. So it makes me wonder, was this actually consumer machines or enterprise machines? Because we're seeing the worm go down based on the
kill switches.
Yeah, but is it because things are being patched, or is it becomes version 3 now is no longer using the kill switch? I mean, the kill switch is dead.
So version 1, version 2.
we both had kill switches.
Yeah, kill switches, and one had a some funny offsets to it, whatever. But yeah, so that's pretty easy perspective. So the only ones we're seeing is the ones that are already infected, scanning out, and somebody just left the machine on, right?
My
spreading
other
anymore.
question, and I know, Kevin, it's counter to your question, is why would you put a killswitch domain in there and not register it?
So that's the most intriguing part.
Yeah.
And there were some domains that you can't register because they're not valid. Anyway, but yeah, killswitch, they left it open. Really goes back to kind of a fun story, right? Maybe there's more to this because we're going to find as a community overnight, as long as some crazy person doesn't register and not turn it up, but you gave a way to stop it. It doesn't happen, right? Like, yes, there's terrible code, there's bad ways, there's all kinds of stuff, there's C2s you can take over and move around, but it wasn't registered and easily to register, and then it stops the spread. I mean, it's one thing to say, like, here, keep checking for, like, things to download, but no, it stopped and stopped execution, everything. It just laid over. And the endgame write-ups were great at that. They went in detail. But yeah, there's a lot more questions than there are answers. But
And what if somebody who was malicious had registered them instead of the white hats?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure push comes to shove in that situation, it would have just been snagged. That would be interesting to watch. But yeah, there's a lot more questions for sure.
And Kevin, I think your question is absolutely valid. What did this look like, and why are we seeing these types of patches for Windows XP, and what was the demographic, so to speak?
I mean, we know people still use XP.
Yep.
It's still a topic of conversation every single day, I think, of all of our jobs. And if you're in a situation where maybe you've pirated the operating system, why move on from something that works?
Yep.
Well, there's also, I know of Gov, there's probably others that pay a lot of money for a support contract.
Yeah.
And so they do deserve patches in that situation. There was some mention of it earlier where, if you're doing it for one, and it can help, but then it also kind of gives you a temporary patch to not upgrade, maybe. Not of the people that pay for support, but the others.
Yeah.
Well, legislation is going to fix this problem.
Clearly.
There are 2 U.S. senators that have proposed a law limiting American intelligence agencies' secret stockpiles of vulnerabilities found in products. The Protecting Our Ability to Counter Hacking Patch Act would set up a board, get this, chaired by the Department of Homeland Security official, to assess security flaws spies have found in code and hardware and decide if manufacturers should be alerted to the bugs so they can fix it for everyone.
Because clearly they are the greatest gatekeeper for this stuff.
So
That's right. So not only has this been in the news, but now there are proposed laws in place.
yeah,
Of course.
there was actually a really good talk at Stanford about 4 or 5 months ago. With a couple guys that were related to Web. Mozilla was there, and some EFF people, and really good presentation on it. But apart from Dave Vitale almost, getting fistfights over the VEP guys, it really did bring up some interesting concept, which is if you're offensive 0-day versus defensive 0-day minded. They don't always get along, and you can't have a VEP process without any private industry on it. But you're doing classified things. What do you do? How do you get those statistics across or some insight? And so far, all we've got is, we released 9 out of 10 to the public to be patched. Last I checked, going through the alcohol bottles of any bar, I like 1 out of 10 things. So, you keep what you like.
That implies you've tried them all.
And
college is bad.
Yeah. and drinking beer on a podcast for 11 years is also bad. Once walked into a bar that had 300 different beers, and they
had to try all of them.
No, there were 3 that I hadn't tried.
Yeah, I know.
But
not so much lately, because there are a lot of, since we've stopped drinking beer on the show, we're behind on that.
Yeah, but the 9 to 10 thing is kind of interesting, because I think about this whole proposed measure about DHS is going to say, oh, hey, these bugs, and we're going to say whether the vendors need to be notified, whether they need to be patched, and I'm like, oh, here, 9 vendors, you need to go patch this, and number 10, hey, NSA, have I got something for you?
Yeah.
This is my WannaCry headline of the week.
Oh, yeah?
Companies that patch software dodged WannaCry ransomware.
So
Okay, Captain Obvious strikes again.
So let's add to that a little more obvious, but I think the background story. So you have attacks, you have adversaries, you have hackers. Fine, nothing against the term hacker, but all of this to the vendor, right? This is not I'm attacking your nation state border and throwing a rock at you. This is always attacking Siemens, Microsoft, Apple, whatever you name it. It's the vendor, private industry vendor that have worldwide customer base, not a single country. That presents a challenge as a vendor. I have cloud and IoT and SCADA and craziness just in my own world. And I came from Microsoft. What do you do there? You have worldwide market share. You have worldwide customers. You have to protect everyone equally. And Matt from Cloudflare, he made a really good point. He has Israel and Palestine both as customers. That, the vendor is now the war field, or the playing field.
They need to be Switzerland.
Yeah. I support the neutral perspective, but we're the one being attacked, and then we're the one responsible for defending everyone on all sides. It's not really fair.
And meanwhile, we have agencies going to private companies like Apple and asking them to unlock phones, but they're also asking them to patch things. So they're asking for both things. So they're asking for hacking and they're asking for defense.
Can't make your bed and lie in it too, right?
Yeah, they're running with scissors, and we're on the other side. And I'm not saying they as in any one particular government or agency or anything like that. I'm just saying as the vendor, we get the pokey end of the stick.
I think both ends of the stick are pokey.
Yes, it's a hard place to be. So
That's what she said.
Giggity.
yes.
Matt, you have to come on the show more often just so we can make like sexual innuendos because you're teeing them up.
Awesome. Makes me want to cry.
Oh, all right. Can we not talk about that now?
Yeah.
So last Friday, Google announced a major new initiative that promises to solve one of the many problems that keeps Android phones from being updated. Coming as part of Google Android O, Google will soon begin separating the Android operating system from hardware-specific drivers and firmware in a move called Project Treble.
So they're going to move to iOS?
I thought it was all about the bass and not the treble, but
Wow.
Project Treble will prevent a repeat of what we saw last year with Android Nougat when Qualcomm's unwillingness to support updates on older hardware. Yeah.
So let me ask a question about that one, since you brought up bass and treble. There's baseband, and then there's the OS and system. Baseband has not quite been well maintained at all, and that's above the stack. Correct me where I'm wrong.
Yep.
It's above the stack and can't affect OS. So treble's actually an appropriate name. But this is definitely fixing the carrier problem and everything else. But what do we do about baseband? Right, and that's carrier networks and everything else, and there's problems there. What do we do?
I don't know that, and quite honestly, I think this is one of those things that, as a consumer, I don't know that there's anything we can do. You can make a choice of iOS, but you still have baseband problems.
You still have baseband, and that's carrier,
and that's all carrier specific. And I relate this back to one of the things we talk about in the SANS wireless class that I teach, and that we talk about wireless security. 3G.
You do talk about wireless security in the wireless security track.
We do,
sense,
and we talk about cellular security. What can we do to defend against it? What can we do? And the answer is this slide intentionally left blank. As a consumer dealing with the carriers,
but if it says that, it's not really blank,
right? Don't make me smack you, butthead. But as a consumer, there at baseband, there is literally nothing that we can do aside from not use it, or rely on higher layer protocols to deal with some of the issues there. I don't think there's anything that we can do about baseband.
Yeah.
Aside from pressuring the providers to do something about
But
it.
also the manufacturers.
Yeah, it's
We
providers
don't-
and
We don't.
manufacturers.
You did the firmware for the actual
Fair enough. Yep.
cell. That's not public. That's
You know,
not
wait,
audible.
it's firmware. Security does not apply in today's world.
That's a good point because they did put a WAF in front of that, so it's totally fine.
They've got AV on their firmware. It's fine.
Flip the table.
Totally fine.
But I mean, it's kind of a zero-sum game at that point. It's hope.
Yeah.
That's all you really got
No,
going for
let's
you.
be honest. Most of the attacks against Android are not baseband attacks. They're attacking the OS and the apps themselves. And really, not even attacking the OS. They're really just malicious apps being put on the phone.
Well,
They're taking advantage of like Android native features,
And
like the ability to put in APK with like, hey, I heard you like APK, so I put an APK inside your APK that gives me a backdoor.
Overly broad permission requests that people like. Was it Jim McMurray put one on Facebook the other day that he installed the Pirates of the Caribbean new app for like downloading the trailer or something on Android, and it asked requests to be able to place phone calls on his behalf. Like
awesome.
Fuck no.
Check, please.
Well, you know, we covered a story in Hack Naked News that Android apps, there were over 200 found that requested access to your microphone so they could listen to what's happening in your environment, listen to what TV shows you watch, listen to where you are in your environment. And there were stores that were participating in a program in Europe that were sending ultrasonic frequencies that can't be heard by the human ear, but your microphone picks up on your Android device. Yeah. April is totally appalled by the story. And it's like, oh, you were in that store. Like, check. Now I know a little more about you. Thank you very much. Oh, and when you're sitting there watching TV, oh, the TV broadcasting is putting those ultrasonic frequencies. So, oh, I know you were watching that TV show and in that store. How friggin' creepy is that?
Morse code or digital transmission over
High frequency.
I called it ultrasonic frequency.
Yeah,
is that the
fine.
that
That's
was
fine.
what was in the article?
That's fine. That'll work.
You're the expert on that, so you tell us.
Yeah,
whether
no, that'll work, and you just click. Oh shit! I gotta go.
Yeah,
I get some software right.
It's bad.
So just to touch on that one really quickly, because the FTC is actually doing good work for once on this particular subject.
Not even for once. Also, we covered the FTC put together a global law enforcement task force to cut down on and indict the tech support scammers.
No, that's true. Go FTC.
Like,
You're doing
FTC
great.
is awesome. Like, how often do we say, like, hey, you, government agency, like, you're awesome. Like, FTC, you're awesome.
You got NOAA, NASA, and FTC. That's the list of great
pretty
government
much.
agencies.
Yeah.
But they actually issued not just a warning, but a good slap on the wrist for this company called Silverpush, who was caught doing the example you're talking about of utilizing microphones in smartphones to listen to inaudible frequencies. And what they then did is then approach TV manufacturers, Samsung in particular, to then embed the code in televisions, thus bypassing everything so they could still correlate your web activity on your phone to what TV show or ad you're watching in your room. And then you would go outside.
So
and it was the dirtiest thing.
There's actually a company, Specific Media, is one of them, really well known. So they will tie in with the telcos that provide you TV and internet. So I'll search for, not myself, but search for diapers, search for vacation, search for whatever. You'll get commercials on your TV that will match your Google searches or your ISP searches. I don't want to say Google because that's SSL.
Invasive.
But
it's not necessarily malicious, right? But it's certainly invasive. It's certainly a
Well, there is
privacy
no more
issue.
privacy.
Yeah.
I mean, we have no privacy. If you think you have privacy, I think that you're
delusional.
Yeah.
But like if I get a coupon for diapers, like I'm pretty happy with that.
Until
12-year-old
that story about the dad opening the
letter.
mail and letters and stuff saying, hey, you might want some diapers and some formula, and the only other in the house is the 14-year-old girl who had bought a pregnancy test online type of thing.
Did she buy a pregnancy test, or it was like
it was something like that.
It was like cotton swabs and oils or something that were common to be bought by people that were pregnant or during that era.
It could be. Could be.
It's Specific Media that does the marketing.
You read it once on the internet. I get it.
It must be true. But yeah, that's creepy. And at that point,
and we've talked about that story a number of times. Yeah. So, but
And it's still creepy.
Yeah,
it is. It is.
Well, the one I really like is the one with commercials or TV. Now, that could be you're watching something. That could be your patterns of watching something. That's really curious because now you're tying my environmental things to a phone. But I think the FTC is kind of cracking down, especially commercialized leverage of that.
Yeah, they've done a lot of work on ad tech technologies too, especially as it relates to Bluetooth 4.0 and utilizing iBeacon or smart beacon technologies in stores. The things that locate where you are and what product you're looking at. All of that was then tied into these larger ad tech ecosystems that were utilizing cookies. Or utilizing
I just want to be asked if that's okay, right? Like I'm okay with that technology. I want the choice as a consumer. And as we all know today, like Amazon and Facebook have some agreement that when I buy something or search for something on Amazon, and I think it might extend to Google as well. So like I Google for a product or I purchase for or search for a product on Amazon, I then see Facebook ads that or advertising for that. Yeah. I'm okay with that as long as I have some insight into how that program works and can like opt in or out. The way it works right now is just friggin' creepy because I search for like headphones or audio stuff on Amazon, and all of a sudden I'm going to Facebook and I'm seeing like advertisements for the shit that I was searching for on Amazon. And I'm like, hold on, you're two separate companies. Like, that's weird. However, if Amazon or Facebook said, hey, do you want to, like, if Facebook said, hey, do you want to see ads, like, based on what you're searching for on Amazon? I might be, and told me how it worked, I might be like, yeah, either that's okay or it's not, if you give me some insight. The way it works today, with all the stuff we talked about, is it just happens without you having any insight or approval mechanism into the way it's happening.
You probably have the approval. It was on that EULA that you really.
It was on that EULA that you read. Yeah.
Well, LinkedIn just recently, to exactly what you're saying, they did prompt everyone saying, "Would you like to let LinkedIn beacon everyone around you Bluetooth to tell them who you are?" You're like, no.
Fuck no.
Yeah, but LinkedIn is like the Apple of social networking. Like, it's a completely closed environment.
But they did remove that because of the social cry of, hey, we're not cool with this, or at least temporarily until they sneak in again. But, that, like you said, I just want to be asked, and then you say no.
So we think that's creepy, but I don't know that everybody does. I think that tailored ads are definitely more relevant, and they're definitely better for retailers, of course. So they're always going to make it so it's the default that you get the tailored ads versus, you have to opt out right now. And we think it's creepy, but would the public rather see things that they're trying to buy as ads, or would they rather see something totally unrelated? Like, do I want to see hiking ads? No, I don't go hiking.
Right.
I hate hiking,
yeah. Exactly. Like I'm all about diapers, like wipes and baby powder. That's great. Well, but like hiking, I don't know. I don't really get into hiking.
Well, so I don't know this answer, but if I go to my Apple phone right now and I click on generate a new advertising ID, does it change those ads? Because that's probably...
Wait, you can do that?
Yeah.
Gotta go.
It's way at the bottom of the screen.
I like 3D.
And there's also a very good one that says forget all wireless. So all those wireless things that aren't in the area for you to disassociate to, you can say wipe all of them.
Of course, it does that across all of your Macs that are synced to your your
Apple
account.
Cloud.
Right. So if you go home and suddenly your Mac won't connect, even though your iPad is...
Wait, where is this? No, seriously.
It's actually I don't think it's actually in iOS 10 anymore. You have to do it on... Oh, maybe
you can do forget network, but I don't know that you can do forget all
this?
network.
You can forget networks. You cannot forget probes, which is I think most of the challenges. But Apple is actually doing a lot of really cool things when it comes to defeating advertising technologies, like dynamic MAC address rolling for Wi-Fi scanning and Bluetooth.
Yep.
I didn't know I run Android.
It's under
then you're just screwed
reset.
at this point.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I do have a Pixel, so I do get updates right from Google.
Well, hopefully Treble will fix a lot of this. I'm actually very excited to kind of segue back to where we started with this whole conversation. That Android is taking a proactive approach to take the power out of the OEM's hands or the manufacturer's hands and be able to update on a more regular basis, because it would fix a lot of these problems we're discussing. So
that's
good
huge.
for Google or Alphabet or whatever they're called these days.
And that was my thing for quite some time when I was buying an Android device, that I wouldn't buy it from anyone but Google.
Yeah, but even then they're end of lifing them after a year or two. It was just
it's fine. I love my Nexus 7. both of them. Actually, I would rephrase that as all three of them.
Go on.
And
Keep talking.
tell me more.
Four Nexus devices.
No
So-
one expects a Spanish answer.
Would 3 home security systems found to be vulnerable if attackers were hiding in the bushes?
Because that's where all burglars hide, is the bushes.
in the bushes.
With hoodies.
Well, okay.
This one just
tell
has
me more.
sunglasses on.
Tell me more.
This is from. Can you guess where this is from? You're
Yeah,
looking at it.
yeah, I
This
can
is-
guess where it's
This
from.
is from the register. If you hadn't guessed already, so Rapid7 found 10 vulnerabilities after putting Comcast, Xfinity, ADT, and AT&T Digital Life Systems through their paces. The issues range from fail-open conditions on the external door and window sensors to weak pre-shared Wi-Fi access passwords onto clear text, unencrypted network communications. Exploitation of the identified vulnerabilities could have allowed an attacker to compromise homeowner security cameras, disarm door sensors, gain router access to implement malicious firmware, and redirect DNS traffic to an alternative server, potentially controlled by the attacker. None of this comes as any great
surprise.
surprise.
I mean, it was only, a year ago when Rapid7 did their first assessment of Comcast security. Doesn't sound like they learned much on this one.
And Paul, to tie into that article, I posted one, my story number 5, that any half-decent hacker could break into Mar-a-Lago.
Where's Mar-a-Lago?
That's,
Florida.
The Southern White House, or whatever they call it
Yes.
now,
Yeah.
Summer Camp White House.
They use weak encryption on their Wi-Fi.
And or no encryption, and there's a whole host of issues. The guys that looked at this from Gizmodo actually rented a boat and used a cantenna, so to speak, and just got close enough to be able to point the antenna and found all sorts of fun stuff about their wireless.
They didn't
And
connect.
They didn't connect.
They just scanned. And
Gotcha.
They listened, and that was enough, I suppose. Which I would agree that's potentially enough to make a fair enough assessment.
Smart.
I would also say the same thing that about a month and a half ago, I went to Wiggle, and I Googled Mar-a-Lago's address, and I put the address into Wiggle and found out what access points had been discovered there, and sure enough, they were crap security. So I didn't even need to leave my house and go rent a boat to do said types of things. But and they were fairly recent surveys, and it wasn't just about the wireless stuff. They did some other research and found that there were lots of administrative type of systems tuned with all of the Mar-a-Lago type stuff that were woefully out of date
And exposed to the internet.
and exposed to the internet.
Interesting. I mean, there's different levels of physical security, right? Like, there's your average everyday consumer that I believe, and I don't know, I'll still defend this kind of viewpoint, that the insights you get into your environment by using the smart technology in your home outweigh the risks of an attacker being technologically sophisticated to break into your house. I also think there's a lot of non-technological things that you can use to break into your home, right? And if someone really wants to get in when you're not
like
there,
breaking a window instead
Yeah.
of cracking your Bluetooth.
yeah, like I mean, there's a certain elegance to figuring out that my locks have Z-Wave on them and making the door unlock when likely someone just left a window unlocked on the first floor, or there's a window unlocked on the second floor and.
Or
Okay.
windows are made out of glass.
But that makes noise, right? So maybe even my ladder is locked to a pillar on my deck underneath my deck, but my neighbor left their ladder out, so they're just going to get my neighbor's ladder and go up to the second floor and just gain access to my home. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but when you're talking about a higher security environment, those factors come into play. I think for most of us, those factors may not come into play, and I think having that technology like Ring and Arlo and all of those other and smart things and being able to connect to it gives you information. Yeah, that stuff can be hacked, but for the most part, I mean, for most of us, 90+% of the time, that stuff is an extra security measure. The fact that I can go on my phone and see who's standing at my front door. Like, I have a Ring, and I tell you, like, there's a super wide lens on that thing, and it can go far into the street. And if there's ever a concern that someone is standing in front of our home in any capacity, my wife and I go in a Ring, and we're like, and you can talk to the person. Yeah. So as they get closer, like, we literally tell kids in the neighborhood, like, we're not home right now, or like we're about to eat dinner, so you have to go home or find another neighbor to go bug. Basically, is how we use it.
Yep.
But that's a
So
huge.
you'll like this one. This is from my security camera today.
Yeah.
The front door went off because there's a freaking yellow jacket running swarming
I
around.
saw that. I saw it. Yeah.
Yep, right there.
I think one of the best things I got from my security camera was my neighbor's house, who has double pane glass, and somebody was trying to break in. So they took a rock and they're hitting against a window, but it's plexiglass. So it's like
bouncing off. Boom.
like what? Okay, so you just got a funny video of somebody trying to break in and unsuccessfully getting through a window. So that's always kind of fun.
That's kind of scary, though.
Yeah.
Why were they at your neighbor's house and not yours?
Well, I don't have shiny things sticking out my windows that say "rob me." You know, I have expensive stuff in here. I just kind of make it look normal. But you know, they also have some different behavior with kids. So.
So to tie this back around to the Gizmodo article real quick, they to give at least a little bit of precedent and credibility to some of this, they talked to two folks that I respect very much. A quote from Jeremiah Grossman is, "This is bad, very bad." And Robert Graham says, "What you're describing is typical hotel security. It's pretty concerning." So. Two people that I know and respect actually commented on this article and the things that they found. And
Do you guys use wireless at hotels?
No.
Ever?
No,
I wouldn't exactly say use wireless, but I listen to it from time to time.
It may listen to wireless, but no, I totally tether.
Yeah, I do too. And working in the hospitality casino industry in this little place called Las Vegas, you know, there's some conferences there. Yeah, it's a little scary.
No, it's not a little scary.
It's a lot
scary. Yes.
A lot scary. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for helping us with this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. It was nice to have our special guests, April and Matt, in studio. Magical reappearance by Not Kevin in studio. Yay! Not Kevin's like, I'm coming back. I'm not going to be on Skype. I'm going to be in studio. Larry, as always, thank you very much. Thanks to our special guest, Joel Scambray. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching Paul's Security Weekly. We will see you next time. Over. And...
Under.
Out!
Thank you. Thank you.